who's here has started a business before, and who's currently running one, and who has tried to sell a business, even if you didn't manage? Okay, not many hands. So I guess that's a good point, right? If you want to sell a business, you need to try to sell it first. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. I'm also a big believer of social pressure. So I like to put things publicly out there, and that helps me to stay motivated to go out there and achieve them. So one of the things that I started doing this year is writing a book. I've titled it Ambitiously Insecure. I think that kind of sums me up as being a very contrasting person, where I'm ambitious, but I can also be insecure. I can be confident, but I can also get nervous, and I guess that's okay. Before I get to the slides, I wanted to go through just a couple of things that maybe will add some value to your life instead of just telling you about my story. One thing that I found very important this year is there's a big shift happening in search traffic, and a lot of that search traffic is going into AI, into ChatGPT, into Grok, and I've just been trying to figure out how do I make sure that my business is recommended by the AI. So there's a new standard, it's called LLMs.txt. It's kind of like a robots.txt file, except you just upload a text file that has all of your website content, and you just put it as a text file in your hosting. And this makes it very easy for LLMs to understand what's on your website. LLMs have a very short attention span. They're kind of like people with amnesia or dementia, so they need to understand what's on your website very quickly to be able to recommend it to other people. And this new standard can be very useful for your business in that way. I'm also, all of the things that I do, I use a framework of creativity and innovation. Very quickly, creativity is the generation of new and useful ideas, whilst innovation is the implementation, bringing those ideas to life. Now, innovation doesn't need to be really complicated, like building a rocket that goes to Mars. It can be something as simple as getting an idea that works in one country and implementing it in another country. And that's some of the things that I've done with my story too. Also, again, it's like you don't have to be perfect at what you do. I think I'll retitle this talk to Ambitiously Insecure in the future, but I was thinking of calling it the presentation of shit presentations, and maybe you'll see why very soon. But yeah, this is me, baby me. I was an angel until I was like 13 years old, and the testosterone started flowing and my character changed forever. But yeah, next to me there's my older brother, great guy, very different to me, lives a steady life back home in Malta, whilst I travel the world doing all kinds of weird stuff. This is where I come from, tiny island in the middle of the Mediterranean. There's 500,000 of us. I often introduce myself as an endangered species because there's not many of us left. And it goes to show that you don't need to be from New York or from London or from some big shot city to actually make things happen, especially now with the internet. And that's something that I didn't know was true until I started marketing myself online to people across the world. This is me on my last day of school in Malta. I decided to put this photo because I did something fun where I went to Burger King. I got 40 Burger King hats, and I made all of my classmates wear these hats on our last day of school. After I finished high school, got on a plane with 4 friends, moved over to Australia, worked on a farm, worked knocking on doors, selling charity subscriptions, solar panels, and that was a super cool experience. It was then after that I went over to Southeast Asia. I was in Bali 10 years ago, and I didn't know what a digital nomad was. I don't think many people did, and I didn't find out then either. But I did go on a pub crawl in Cambodia, and that gave me my first business idea. I was like, wow, these are young people selling party tickets, taking tourists around bars and having fun. So I went back to Malta, and I decided I'm going to start a pub crawl in Malta. And I didn't have a big budget, so I was getting posters, sticking them on wooden boards, climbing on the street poles and sticking them there illegally. Worked out for some time until the local council wasn't very happy about that. So instead I started putting stickers everywhere and using digital marketing to kind of get that business off the ground. I ran it for a few years. Whilst doing that, I did a couple of other things, started hosting trips to go abroad for skiing with my friends from university. I joined ESN, which was the Erasmus Student Network, and became the president of that NGO. That got me an opportunity to travel to universities across Europe and meet lots of people from lots of different backgrounds and organize all kinds of really, really fun events. I also started surfing, and I often do say that surfing saved my life, because it was the first time that I found a community of people that really accepted me for how I am in all of my weird and crazy ways. And I wanted to introduce that to all of the people who visit Malta to study in that university. And till today, I see surfing as an important part of both my physical and mental health, but also my life philosophy. Surfing, when you first start out, is very difficult, but the more often you do it, it becomes easier and easier. You're very often, on some days, if you're not feeling good, it really comes out in the water. It's like you're kind of tied to what you're feeling inside and to how you perform out there. And you know, when you actually get in the water, the hardest part is getting out past the break. And I do believe the hardest part of starting a business is just getting started. And then once you've actually got started, you do have a moment to kind of calm down, look around, and see what the next opportunity is to catch that next wave. I started a wine club. This was a subscription, my first kind of e-commerce business. I started hosting wine tastings, learning about wine, and this was working for a while. And after about 2 years doing this, I decided to exit this business, and I sold it to my co-founder. So obviously that was a conversation that I needed to have. It's sometimes a very difficult conversation to have, to talk to somebody who you're in business with and explain that, listen, you're no longer interested to go forward, but you definitely have done a lot of work, you own equity, and you'd like to sell it. So, you know, like a lot of things in life, if you don't ask for it, nobody's going to come and give it to you. So you need to really ask for things if you want to receive them. Whilst I was doing all those things, the puck roll really grew for me, and it became my kind of go-to business for 4 or 5 years. And I was 24 at the time when I decided, it was also 2019, when I decided to sell this business. I repeated the same process after I sold my first business, and that is, I usually approach people who know my business, who I've worked with, who are either my client or I'm sending them some money already, and that for me was the company that does the boat parties. So we were cross-selling each other's products for 2 years, and then when I decided I wanted to exit, I approached him with this very shit presentation. And you know, I guess it's the content that matters, and it's also, I guess, easier to sell a business to someone who understands what you're doing and already sees the result. You don't need to talk it up, you don't need to over-explain. And every time kind of I prepare a presentation to sell my company, I always put the same things inside. How much money are we making? How much revenue, profit? But also search trends help me to kind of prove that, listen, year by year, there's more traffic means more business, it's growing. And I usually try to time it, where I look at the graph and I see a nice jump up. I'm like, okay, now's the time to sell it. So it's the timing of when you decide to sell a business is important. No one wants to buy a business that's on the way down. So I personally like to start a business, grow it, and then when I feel like I'm getting bored, like I don't really feel like doing the same thing anymore, and things are still on the way up, that's when I decide, okay, now it's time to start pitching it to people who might want to buy it. And I think that's an interesting way to do it. Also, social proof helps. In this case, TripAdvisor reviews, articles with travel bloggers, this sort of thing. It really kind of just helps to put like your brand next to established brands and make it look more sexy. And I was also quite lucky, right? Because I started selling the business in 2019. By January 2020, the deal was closed. The guy just paid me in cash, and I was really happy. 2 months later, the whole world goes into lockdown, and obviously there's no nightlife happening in Malta that year. So it was kind of a very lucky moment for me to exit just before the pandemic arrived. But it did put me in an awkward position where I didn't know what to do next with my life. And I was following Peter Levels for a long time, and one of the things that he's done is doing 12 startups in 12 months. And I decided, that's catchy, that's kind of like It's a fun way to think about things. I was going to turn 25, so I thought 5 and 5. I had done 2 businesses, so let's try to do 3 in 1 year. Sounds achievable. And I also wanted to do something that's maybe more ambitious. So I decided to start a company that was in the metaverse. And the metaverse back then was completely obscure. And I was basically building on a platform called Decentraland. I created this company that at first was called Decentraland Architects, and then became Metaverse Architects. I was doing very small work, nothing impressive, for 6 to 9 months. Really small jobs with people who were kind of just experimenting too. I got lucky again. But again, luck is also something that you kind of need to expose yourself to. The more bets you take, the more likely you are to have some luck. And Facebook changed their name to Meta. A lot of companies started finding my website on the front page of Google. I ended up doing a campaign with a company called Transact that does fiat to crypto on-ramps. That campaign went viral, and I started getting UBS Bank, Signum Bank, a bunch of banks started hiring me to build their metaverse experience. No idea what I was doing, completely talking sometimes out of my ass, which is not recommended, but I wanted to try, and at the same time I'm also very transparent and honest, so I never told people that, listen, I know how to code or I know how to 3D model. I always explain, listen, I'm the sales guy, we're going to take your request and we're going to give it to the developers and they're going to build your metaverse experience. That worked out for 2 to 3 years. I was really burnt out at the end of that. I had disagreements with my co-founders. I raised money for that company, and I signed a really bad investment agreement where if me and my co-founder ever disagree, we lose the whole company. So whilst it was a success for 3 years, and I did, I guess, sell part of it, in the end, the investors took the whole thing that was left, which was really bad because once you start a business and you build domain authority, that really helps you to launch your next business. So for the first time, I didn't have that kind of social media and website that I could roll over into the next business. At the same time that year, so this was the pitch deck I used to close my first client. I found a guy on Reddit or Discord whose name I didn't even know. It was just called Severance to me. And he had a portfolio of works he's done. I told him, hey, can I use your portfolio, put it under my brand, and pitch your work, and if I close deals, we split the profits. And it worked out, he agreed, from having 0 experience, it looked like I had a lot of experience. And I guess that's also some good advice. It's nice to be a solo entrepreneur, but if you want to move fast, sometimes you do need to go together as well. Because there's some things that people can bring to your value offering that you don't have yet. So this was the pitch deck I used to close my first clients. My first big client, then became my investor. So once again, I received investment from somebody who was already working with me. So the process of them having to convince them that they should work with me was not that difficult because they were already aware of what we could deliver. And again, I really recommend that if it's your first time trying to raise capital or sell a business. It's not necessarily the best way, and it's not necessarily the way where you will get the highest valuation, but I find it the easiest way, which I like. At the same year, I was writing a thesis for my master's in creativity and innovation, and I was writing about citizenship, self-sovereign identity, digital nomads, and I was trying to write this thesis about how to make, a cool program for people who are nomadic and location independent. My thesis supervisor was not very happy with the work I was doing. She told me, you're actually writing a business plan. So I told her, okay, I give up on the thesis. I'm going to start a business. And instead I launched nomadvisamalta.com. I was the first Maltese person to market the nomad residency globally, and this gave me a huge advantage over the law firms who were complaining that we created a nomad residency at first, and then realized it's actually a very good opportunity. So it took them a year or 2 to start marketing it and put it up on their website. So for 2 years I was getting all of the business. really interesting people. One of them was a billionaire from Singapore, and I didn't just help him with his nomad residency. I helped him set up a company that was a holding company for maritime ships that is still running today. He manufactures ships in Spain, leases them in Croatia, and all the profits go to Malta. Yeah. And yeah, no, it was really fun. Again, I think people like to buy from people they like. So I'm not such a serious person. I always try to stay, well, okay. But I try to stay friendly and playful, because I do think that people like to work with people they enjoy to hang out with. And today my criteria for hiring or partnering is, do I want to get a beer with you? If I don't want to get a beer with you, I don't want to work with you. So that's kind of like how I guess I'm living life. This is me and my friend over there. We were at the offices of Residency Malta together. That was a super cool experience for me. I felt like I was doing something really important. And I still help some nomads today, but it's not my main focus. I did try to sell the Nomad Visa company. I haven't managed to do that yet. Maybe it's because the presentation is really bad as well, but who knows. But it's still generating income for me. Did maybe 15K with it last year. And that's just people booking 50 euros to talk to me for 30 minutes, and then I'm basically upselling them to lawyers and people who can service them in a way that I can't, because I'm not a qualified provider of these services. I do try to target people who are kind of high net worth individuals with this business, and anyone who actually does talk to me that's not making hundreds of millions or millions. I just give my advice for free, because now I'm from Malta, I want to see Malta do well, and I would love to see more digital nomads in the country. Again, as I mentioned, I think success is really about timing. Well, you can probably succeed in a crowded market, but you're going to have to work harder. I don't like to work that hard. I like to work, but I don't like to kind of do something that's more difficult than it should be. So I try to enter markets where there's no competition and I'm the only person there, and this seems to work out for me. I did burn out after my last, about 3 years ago, I think now, and I was really kind of not going to the gym, I was not surfing, my mental health was just going down the drain. So from that day I said, I've got to set myself a new goal, a physical goal, and that goal was 10 kilos of muscle before I turned 30. This was when I was 27, I'm 29 now. In the past year I put on 7 kilos, some muscle, a little bit of chub as well, which is okay. And like everything, sometimes life throws you a curveball. Last January I was snowboarding in the mountains here in Bansko, and I decided to try snowboarding, and I flipped over, landed on my shoulder, my collarbone went ping. So I had to figure out how to continue to get to my goal whilst having a little setback. But I took it in my stride, and I managed to keep going to the gym. I think I have like 85%, 90% of my movement back. It'll never be the same, but I think I learned a few lessons there as well, like I'm not invincible. So yeah, that's cool. But when I was exiting from Metaverse Architects, there was already this whole AI stuff starting out. And I thought that's an amazing opportunity, because when you're in an industry that's just 5 years old and you've been doing it for 5 years, you are automatically in the top 1% of people who understand the subject. So that's also a good advantage of entering markets that are new. And I decided to really niche down and focus on fashion. And I created a website, AIModelAgency.com, spent 2.5 years consulting fashion brands, using all of the tools that help fashion brands to generate photography of their clothing on top of models. And then I had this idea, and it's that each and every one of you has a face, and it's kind of a unique face, a very pretty face. And that's kind of like your logo. On the internet, you have a profile picture, that's your personal logo. So it made me realize that what you look like is your intellectual property, and with the way that the world is going with AI, you're going to be able to generate photos of yourself no matter where you are in the world, to work with any company in the world, to dress up any kinds of clothes in the world. So what my whole thesis on this business is that I'm creating a marketplace for models to be hired through AI. Again, I was doing this for a while, and the competition started getting really, really busy. So I created another shit pitch deck, and last January, this company got acquired by a larger AI company that's doing AI, is doing 4 million a year in AI headshots. So I thought that's perfect. They have nailed what someone can look like in a headshot. Now we just need to do the virtual try-on part, put them together, and we've got the best tech on the market. In the past 4 or 5 months since I've joined this Better Pick team, and we've created Better Studio. We're now Better Group. We basically are now are running these 2 separate products under the same company. I didn't sell for cash. I sold for equity in the group. And this is the first time that I'm actually in a company where I'm a minority shareholder, but I was so happy to do it because the people in the company and the team are so awesome. Like, we have the same vibe, the same energy, we all like to have fun, and it's a remote team. We meet up once a quarter, and we've closed our seed round this month, where we've managed to raise 1.5 million to go to our next stage. We've partnered with a model agency based out of Belgium called Jackie Lee, and together we're going to try to make the kind of like a Spotify, but for AI fashion photography. And you might be wondering, what do you mean by Spotify? Well, the idea here is that when music streaming and music piracy came onto the internet, companies like Napster started kicking off. And there was one issue over there, and that was the artist wasn't being paid. And I think that that's the same problem I'm trying to solve here. Today you can go to Grok, you can go to Midjourney, and you can create a picture of Angelina Jolie and driving your new BMW, and she's not getting paid for that. So this is the framework we're trying to build. It's a platform where influencers, models can be hired, no matter where they are in the world, without ever having to catch a flight. Again, this is the shit pitch deck I used to pitch to the partnership. Admittedly, I used Gamma to create it, so wasn't that much work for me to create the pitch deck. But again, when I asked you all who here is running a business, a lot of people put their hands up. But when I asked who here has tried to sell their business, I didn't really see any hands up. So I guess the difference here is that I actively start and grow something, and I'm very, very quick, and after 2 or 3 years, looking how to sell, and whether that's selling for cash or for equity or for partnering, it doesn't matter. I think that's one way to grow faster. So yeah, this is my whole concept. I want to create a company that's doing ethical AI in fashion. You may have seen the Ghibli trend, and I think that the Ghibli trend is a real shame that the guy whose works were used to train all of these AI models was not paid a single cent by the millions, if not hundreds of millions of generations of the people who used in their prompt, create a photo of me looking like the Ghibli artwork. So we're also looking at partnering with photographers and training specific models on what a specific photographer's style is like. So that way, even photographers can be a part of this new wave of opportunities. Yeah, that's a bit about what I'm up to. I hope my story is kind of like understandable, and I really love to bounce ideas, help people scale businesses. I do that for fun. So if you want to talk about how to kind of market your company in an organic or a bootstrapped way, super open to do that. That's a bit about my talk. Hope you enjoyed it, and see you later.